Howdy, everybody. I think every Twitter space should be just like this, and I'd like to, is everybody coming up here? Is it just me? There's like 4 of us, right? Yeah, come on up. Yeah, I'm not gonna introduce anybody because I don't know if they want to go by their real names or their Twitter handles or whatever, so I want to be respectful of that. Also, if anyone's ever heard me speak before, I've probably said this a lot, but I incurred a brain trauma in the year 2000. I don't remember specific details about things very well, so I'll probably just fuck it up if I try. Remember to like and retweet, please, so that we get more people. If you want a request to come up, probably don't. I don't know how this works really, but we could probably manage something like that. We have a 4th, correct? Cool. Yeah, howdy. I wanted to reflect on something Aaron said earlier in the very first intro portion, that this feels early. It does. It feels early, and I think a lot of people think they are early to things, but this point in history, the speed at which data and information moves makes us more likely to be right about being early, because I think we have a lot of context about where we sit historically. This feels early because we have so much context about what's going on around us and the things that this might actually solve. If this were happening in the year 1700, well, it wouldn't be happening in the year 1700 because of a variety of reasons. Just like when people started getting on airplanes, they knew more about other cultures, right? And boats even too, although much slower. This is the most context we've ever had culturally. Just think about like how important that is for what we're doing and why we think this is important. Just wanted to note that. Outside of that, my name is Donny Clutterbuck. That is a tough follow that we are going to come after. Speaking of which, we have 2 artists, a curator and a Launchpad founder. They all walk into a bar. The punchline is as follows. I think we should just start by saying, is that a freebie or is this your microphone? Or cool, you can have that one if you'd like. Something that I think is really important about diversity, I guess before we start, it's cool that we have so many different types of people on stage, because I'm on the US Bartenders Guild Board of Directors, and we talk a lot about diversity because diversity doesn't just mean being black and white and Asian and male and female and having a representation from each population, although that is a component of it. It's about asking different backgrounds what their feelings are on the same subject. And I think we have a pretty diverse array of, inputs here available. And I think the first question is going to be, what brought you to Ordinals, and what problems, well, I guess we can phrase it this way. What problems in your previous life does this solve that led you here? If you'd like to begin, tell us who you are. Why Ordinals?
So first of all, I'm Hugo. I'm curating for Gamma, and I wouldn't say that it solves any any personal issues, but like I'm here to push artists to create and suggest actually interesting artworks and creativity. So to jump back on what I think Eric said just before on stage, to avoid the kind of like what we could call like bullshit art. I come from a very traditional art background from Christie's, and before that artsy. So I used to work with many galleries, many artists all over the world, and I think what's interesting to see now on Ordinals is what happened on Ethereum maybe like 4 or 5 years ago. It's very new, it's booming, and yeah, I feel like it needs to build up. Artists need to find and use the technology properly. So if you look at upstairs, we have like a good variety of different artworks. We have what we could call like generative artworks, or recursive inscriptions. We have like very different mediums. So I think this is what I want to see on Ordinals and on Gamma, for artists to really embrace the technology.
Cool.
Hey guys, hey everyone, GM. I'm Naqib, co-founder for Ordzaar. What got me into Ordinals is basically the beauty of the utility, which is preservation. I'm not an artist, but I love to draw, just for fun, for my kids, with family. But along the way, even back then in Ethereum space, NFT itself is something cool, right? It adopts a lot of Web2 users to Web3, but the fundamental in terms of artists, government usage is really low. So when Ordinals came to life, it kind of just blew me away in terms of how it can actually be the utility of preservation of cultural art. So for myself, I've been working hard in talking to different governments, as some of you have seen in my tweets, like the Bali government, working closely with Sarawak government as well, in terms of they have like 2,000-year-old art that they have been trying to digitalize and store. And they want to they've been trying to use NFTs, but it keeps breaking because they have to use their own private smart contract, they have to use their own private storage system like IPFS. And when I showed them how easy inscription is all about, how easy it is to use ordinals to get a simple art into Bitcoin and get it immutable for life, it cannot be tampered with, they were like red pill into it instantly. And that's when they told me to kind of just meet all the ministers, talk to them, and it just started from there. So art, for me, Ordinals is all about preservation of art and culture. Yeah.
You got a government to inscribe art. That's incredible. That's the first narrative that got me into NFTs a long time ago, and I know this is not NFTs technically. The idea behind it was ownership and immutability. And although that ended up being kind of like a false narrative, it feels like it's not being a false narrative now. I've always thought that art was the first thing to break the technology, and always, like in the last few years, always, that kind of always. Is art's the piece that pokes the hole in the boat so that the boat can do what the boat's supposed to do going across the water, whether it's use of governments or long-term cultural storage of things. The things that seem menial that we're doing now are helping to break those systems to make them stronger so that things like that can happen. So thanks for doing that. Why Ordinals? Like your watch.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Fard. So it's interesting that you asked, like, does Ordinal fix something? That's your question, right?
Well, yeah, it doesn't have to be one question. It's like whatever you want to say, kind of.
No,
like,
yeah,
if
okay.
you could just answer it.
No,
totally
it's very
In fact,
interesting.
I watched a bunch of Maxis answer questions that they weren't asked yesterday, so that would be just on par for what's that called, the straw man, right? When I'm like, what do you like about this? And you're like, here's everything I don't like about everything else.
Well, I have an answer.
Yeah, great.
Put it
Answer
this way.
whatever question you want to answer.
Specifically that. So yeah, for me as an artist, I always have been like interested in technology. So I dive into the technology for what I'm making. But it's when I got into crypto, that's like a long time ago, 2014. You know, I was diving into the technology, but also in the cultural aspect. So Ordinals comes now, 2023. That's almost like a decade. So it kind of fixed something because I'm not gonna get out of this space, right? I'm sucked in already, and while I'm an artist, right? So say that in 2021, when NFTs became like a more of a thing, like art in crypto were recognized, let's say, I started to, doing like what everyone was doing very much, like NFTs on Ethereum. And for me, as an artist that want to work with the medium, with the technology, Ethereum was particularly, let's say, not difficult, but it has like challenges, like putting things on chain, on leveraging with it, more complicated, let's say. And also Ethereum had like already a built up ecosystem that in a way, it's not difficult to break in, but it felt like not like I'm late to the party, but it felt like I was catching up with all of this. And now when Ordinals came out, Bitcoin is already over a decade. Like, it has a very interesting history. And the way that Ordinals came out, I consider like this as an art project itself, like a Casey, and I think Casey talks about it like that. I thought like it was very radical and very interesting. And of course, I was talking to Udi and Eric before about doing something with Bitcoin. And it has been in my radar, it was in my radar. So actually, Ordinals like fixed that. And that's why we became involved. I'm basically, all I do is right now in Ordinals. And I think, yeah, so actually it fixed that.
So what problem does it fix, concisely?
Well, it fixed like as an artist, like personally, like being selfish, like the ability to work with the crypto and be working with Bitcoin at a conceptual, cultural level, but also technical level.
Heard. Everybody feels like they're late to something. Everybody's late compared to somebody else. So you mentioned
We're
being late,
running.
and it's funny that I feel like I'm late compared to you. You feel
I
like
say
you're late
I say that because people say that. So it's kind of like a cultural thing. Like I'm late. You know, like
Right,
the other day I
yeah,
was
right.
talking to somebody. Like I'm late to generative R, so I'm gonna go to do generative AI. I'm like,
Right.
okay, maybe you're late to.
I guess
to
if
this.
the word exists, you're late to it already, right? If someone gives you a tip about investing in something, you're probably the exit liquidity. Not to say that you are that. What am I talking about? How about you? what problems does Ordinals solve that you had in your previous life that led you to enter this ecosystem?
So, can you hear me, guys?
A little.
A little. Is it better like this?
Think
Okay,
so.
okay. So, yeah, my name is Burst. I started back in 2019 on Ethereum, and since then I'm a full-time crypto artist, so to speak. And so I saw back in February, I was kind of on the sidelines for weeks and maybe like for 2 months. And then Steven approached me, one of my ETH collectors, but he was actually very deep in Bitcoin and in the ordinal space. And he approached me and said like, dude, are you interested in this? And I said, definitely, but I need to learn more about it. So that led me down to a rabbit hole over weeks and months. And eventually, like in April or May, like I had a little bit of an understanding what could be interesting to work with on Bitcoin. So it was, for me, mainly it was like the provenance and the fact that we can create our own set attributes. That was for me like so unique and so special and something totally new, like uncompared, you know. And that's super essential for me as an artist, that I can really truly on-chain, you know, write my haha into history. And not just that, but you know, it's like very interesting to fight or not just to fight, but like to work with the limitations. You know, like this really challenges me to rethink what I'm doing actually. Like I don't see this as a curse or as a problem or something. For me, this is actually something which is interesting to work with. Sometimes I find it easier to work with limitations than to have all the possibilities in the world, you know. So it was very interesting. The whole process led me down to like an inner reflection on what I'm actually doing, what is haha, what is my art about actually, and so I have to say like Bitcoin was challenging for me and intellectually like very interesting. It nurtured me in this year to develop myself further, and yeah, so that was my take on it definitely.
Cool, thank you. I noticed you're the only person up here not wearing shoes. Is there significance behind that?
No. No, I just found it funny, you know, like everyone has shoes. I have also shoes, so yeah.
I forgot my gas
You
mask.
know, we have to break with our habits. So
No, I dig it. There's a bassist for the Goo Goo Dolls. His name is Robbie Takak. He only plays in socks. I didn't know if there was like a thing that you had about that, and we were going to see it next time too. You touched on this. The specific limitations that Bitcoin has regarding ordinals has made us have to be, I don't know, use ingenuity to solve problems. And it's kind of like if you run out of space somewhere, you have to find a way to compress the data then, right? And how do we do that? And what sorts of limitations? I wanted to go back around if this is okay by y'all. Have you faced any limitations specifically regarding Bitcoin, and has that turned out to be a positive or negative for you?
So like I'm not an artist, but when we worked with artists, for example, for like open calls in Miami last May for Bitcoin Miami, we had some. I brought some artists from Ethereum, and they wanted like to do like some generative art piece. But for example, this like so basically uploading code on Gamma, but this wasn't really a thing, and it was, you know, just May, like a few months ago. So like they couldn't really upload a code and inscribe a code on the platform, for example. So it had to be done manually internally by the dev team at Gamma, because this wasn't, for example, like available on the website. Another thing was for photographers. Obviously, you know, when you take a picture, you know, the quality and the weight of the file is huge. And, you know, we had something like 400 kilobytes limit maximum on Gamma. So basically you have really like to compress the file and make sure that, you know, you do it in a good way that it actually looks good even if you zoom in, which is not always like, you know, compatible. So like some artists actually, you know, tend to move away from what they were initially supposed to present, which I guess can push to creativity, but in another way, you know, it could be a constraint that will probably be solved. I'm not too sure just yet, or maybe it's just gonna push artists to maybe explore different techniques, and this is, you know, what we see with like the different kind of like techniques that artists are using, and some artists from the traditional art world could be, you know, working with plastic, metal. They can be also doing you know, prints, paintings. So I think it's also like a good way for artists to explore variety of like digital techniques.
I think specifically in the United States, we have this error where we either find a lot of stuff and then we make more room for that stuff, or we make a lot of room so that more stuff can fill it up. Everybody has a big house and a big attic. I mean, not everybody, you know what I'm saying? Like cities are suburbs essentially now, because we were just like, well, if we want more people, let's just make more space for it. I like specifically that Bitcoin is like, or rather this community isn't, we're not like talking about how that 400 kilobyte limit should be higher, or that 4 megabytes should be, is like a small limit that we should get rid of and we should go to like a gigabyte or some crazy shit like that. Not to say that that's also not the case. I like that we're trying to find ways of increasing demand for better compression and better services, better ways, more efficient ways of transferring data. This is a really good thing ultimately, because a smaller footprint means that we can use the space we have better, I suppose. How about you? Any specific constrictions that you found to be thumbs up or thumbs down?
I think in terms of restrictions, right? Like for myself, I came from ETH background since 2016, worked in DeFi, and then got into NFTs early as well. And it kind of pampered me to work with smart contracts. And you don't really have that in Bitcoin, where in the early days when we were trying to support artists from Ethereum to come to Ordinals, they had so much demand. Like, is there on-chain VRF? Like, what chain is using? Is that Web3 just the smart contract? Can we do generative art? Can we do ongoing art? Like, a lot of things that they ask. And all these are not yet being developed in Bitcoin yet, in Ordinals specifically, during back in the days. Right? But now, more and more coming in. I think, shout out to Danny, I think he's been pushing recursive as well, which kind of helps to further make the image smaller. And I mean, a lot of people are trying to find ways to work around the compression size, right? Like making the aspect ratio so small and then moving it to WebP and then push it online. So that is, I think, one of the main issues that a lot of different collections try to launch in Ordinals that we face in the space. But I think with more and more technologies coming in, that's gonna really help a lot. Like, for example, I faced quite a big issue when I was helping the Bali government trying to kind of digitalize a big art, right? They have this very big, like really, really big, actually statue, to be honest, like a very, very old statue. And they took a picture, actually they did a LiDAR scan, and the size was huge, like really, really huge. So we are still working on trying to compress it down. We have tried to our best to really compress it really, really like small, but it's still like way above the 4 MB. And that's why I'm trying to get like help from hopefully Danny can support, you know, recursion doing all this, and we can further push this better. Or if anyone else have any better compression tech that I can use to support this art preservation by governments and cultures and Ministry of Cultures, do reach out. You know, these are kind of things that is really in need in this space at this point of time for what I'm doing.
That's a unique problem to have. I don't think there are a lot of people doing three-dimensional riffs on physical art live. That's a problem I really haven't had to overcome yet, and I have no suggestions on how to do that, because that's not how my brain works. That's not what I'm good at, I guess. Ordinals limitations, good, bad?
Yeah, I'll think about. Well, first of all, like any medium, artistic medium, has like limitations. Like when you work with oil, paint, you have the limitation, acrylic or whatever. So NFTs in general allow artists to two type of art. One is like NFTs can serve as a platform for transaction or selling, but also NFTs could be a medium. So you work with the blockchain as a material way. So the way I see, for me, like inscriptions or working with Bitcoin is that literally like it feels like I'm working with material, because the way the blockchain works, there is a energy transaction to create to verify what the mining, right? So you're not, it's not the same, like the same file that put to talk about in general terms, like a JPEG in a hard drive is not a JPEG on the blockchain. The JPEG in the blockchain is a material. So yes, so the 400 kilobytes or 4 megabytes is just a native characteristic of the medium, and I think it's very interesting that as an artist you think about it, because you're making a medium specific work, and for me this is one of the biggest, the most appealing things that I think that Bitcoin has. And like for instance, you go and something very interesting. Now we're working with this number, 400 kilobytes. In Ethereum, is way lower. But like 20 years ago, like in the demo scene for generative art, it was very interesting. You're trying to make things that is 1 kilobyte, and all of this, like we kind of forgot about it relatively, right? Because you have like the ability of creating more complex images, videos, like the gigabytes, or nobody thinks about that. But now we're coming back to this again. Okay, let's make, how do I express all of this, what I want to express with the not using that amount of data? So I think it's a very interesting opportunity for working purely with the basic things that create all of these incredible images that are ubiquitous right now. Like in cinema, anything within cinema is like a VFX, and the core of VFX are like shaders. So now like taking these shaders and to create art, generative art that is going to fit into Bitcoin, I think that's pretty interesting. And it's data that is like distributed across all the nodes, and it's material based. So it's not like it's different. So I think, yeah, I would rather think that this is the characteristic of the medium.
Word. As a person who's coming from high-res, multicolor art, you must have faced a lot of constrictions trying to get this on chain. What were those, and do you like the way it came? I mean, clearly you like the way it came out. You're sitting here. What are your feelings on the process of going through that?
The process was not that easy to me, but it was very interesting. I think I mentioned already before that I find it more challenging but interesting to intellectually just think about what can I bring into my own, expression tool set, so to speak. How can, like recreate those effects or those kind of expressions, what I used to do when I do animation or when I do mixed media, multimedia art pieces like 50 MB, 100 MB. But to do this now maybe static. So this was really challenging. Like I was starting from the physical, feeding an AI to get some, like derivatives. Those derivatives I used to print them on a Ilford Pearl photo print. I used that as a new canvas to paint on it again. I digitalized that again and used that to manipulate it again on Photoshop, and then use that as the final piece to inscribe. So that was just as an example, one of the interesting processes which I would have never done if I would like continue to do what I'm doing. So this was very interesting to me to find new ways to enhance my static art pieces, because eventually, like right now, I'm also doing animations. I'm bringing those animations now to the parent-child, what I'm building on together with Steven and thanks to Ordinally. Yeah, I mean, it's a challenge, but like even with animation, so I'm right now thinking about, okay, they have to be just way shorter, much smaller, and I have to find really good compressions to get the same results, So it's very interesting. For me, it's a big learning curve. The learning curve is really high. So
I think that's for everybody in the audience or on any stage, because this is new for even the people who have been doing it for the longest. And somebody made the machete because they found the woods, right? That's what this is all about. We find a new place full of new constrictions, and we want to go somewhere, so we find a way to do it. This is inherently human. I don't know how much time we have left, but we got 3 minutes. Cool. If anybody has closing remarks, what's next for what you are doing with Ordinals, we can run around and we can get off the stage. What's going on next with you?
I was actually talking, I don't know if he's here, but with Donny yesterday as well, to potentially make also like collaborations between the Ethereum community and bright moments, art blocks on Ethereum. So there's like an event in Paris in next February during NFT Paris, and I'd love to see, you know, some crossovers between Ordinals and NFTs on Ethereum, see more collaborations, because I feel like when I'm with my Ethereum friends or like projects or artists, I feel like nobody talks about, you know, Bitcoin and Ordinals, and vice versa. When I'm with you all here and yesterday, almost, you know, there's almost no mentions of like the Ethereum ecosystem, or very few. So I think like, you know, it could be very interesting to merge and to have like more, you know, collaborative efforts.
Big ships move very slowly, and I think all people who are married to one blockchain will find other things. It's just going to take a while, and I think us being here and just continuing to do this is the method by which that occurs. What's next?
For myself, I created my Launchpad Ordzaar. Just is a free platform, free place for any artist. They can just come in, launch their collection without any fees or anything, right? But that is just one part. But my main focus at this point is actually to work with artists in the online space, the culture itself, right? And to merge together with cultural arts from states and countries. I'm very passionate about cultural art in the sense that I'm half Indonesian and I'm half Malaysian as well, but I'm born in Singapore. So I understand there's a lot of art in Indonesia and in Malaysia. A lot of them are like worth like 2,000 over years old, or very, very unique to its state and countries, right? So even back then during NFT times, I've been trying to get cultural art into the space. And it's really hard to get artists to get into the space because they don't understand smart contract stuff. And for when I was talking to a lot of artists in Indonesia and Bali as well, with the government as well, it's so much easier to do it, and it's much more immutable. Yes, it's slow, it's a bit more expensive, but you pay for premium, right? And they're okay with that because artists, they are very proud. And for me, I'm looking to collaborate with any of the collections out there that are big, that wants to get, dip their fingers together and work with the government and work with Balinese art or any other country's cultural art. Do reach out to me, right? Because I want to try to bring across all the degen culture on the space, as well as having the real culture, art culture, in what we're seeing in the Web2 space. So, yes.
You got to have games and seminars. If it's all seminars, the games people won't show up. And if it's all games and seminars, people won't show up. Thanks for doing it. What's next?
As an artist, I am like a very, also being in Tapper Wizard, we're very close involved to the development in Bitcoin. So for me, it's I need to be catching up with all of it and trying to find like this angle through art that visualize, right? So I'm very involved with the technology, and I'm always talking to also all the developers in Ordinals, and trying to find like an angle on how to explore it, how to push it. So yeah, anything that is happening, I'm doing a project for anything that is happening technological.
What's next is next. I dig that. Yeah, I mean, if you don't have any really solid plans and you don't have like, I'm
no,
gonna
it's
do.
pretty solid actually.
Okay, sorry. Yeah,
it's just
I didn't mean to imply
up.
you haven't thought about it. I just mean to say that like this is one of those spaces that turns so quickly that if you have plans for 16 months to a year from now,
I guess the concrete answer is like what I'm doing, right? Like so, I'm just following all the technological like advancement, like whatever is going things, and I'm trying to experiment with the art. So I have a project for everything.
Cool. All right. Well, I guess still what's next is next. I don't know. I didn't mean to say that you don't have plans. My bad. What's next?
Yeah, so like me and Steven, so we are highly focused right now in the end spurt. We're gonna launch the HAHA cards with our project HAHArtifacts. I think in the next 3 to 4 weeks, I would say latest, and I'm super excited. Like this is you know, my inauguration to Bitcoin and Ordinals, and I'm really stoked to finally release it after months of working on it. And 123 HAHA cards. Yeah, watch out.
Watch out, you heard it first. I would like to finish with that. This was at the first conference where I saw that it wasn't like NFT NYC where we were all there for NFTs, or Ethereum Denver where like half the people are kind of doing, everybody's sort of involved in everything. This was very much like half of the people don't give a shit about what we're doing and the other half of people do really give a shit about what we're doing. And I'm not saying that there's like a war between us or something, but I heard a lot of people who were super hesitant and a lot of very loud voices who didn't like that this is happening, which feels antithetical to Bitcoin to me, but that's a totally separate thing. What I would like to say is just try to be patient with those people, because it's important that half of us on this planet don't want to move from where we are and the other half do want to move. Because if we all did it at the same time and it was the wrong place, we'd all die. And humans wouldn't exist. So it's really cool that we always disagree, because somewhere in the middle we find the truth. Thank you for listening. Thank you for having us, and we'll see you next time.